Part 1: The Knock in the Fog. I had never believed in curses. At least, not until the solicitor handed me the letter, the one sealed in wax, stamped with my family's crest. The Raven and the Key. To Mr. Ethan Blackwood, only surviving heir of the Blackwood estate. That line alone was enough to freeze me. I hadn't set foot in Highgate Woods for nearly 20 years. I'd left all that behind, the whispers, the firelight, the quiet arguments about the covenant. But now, according to the letter, my grandmother, Eleanor Blackwood, had been missing for 18 months. Legally presumed dead. And the manor, along with all remaining Blackwood assets, were now mine. I remember the solicitor's office smelled of damp paper and old whiskey. The man behind the desk looked half asleep when he handed me the key. "It's best you don't stay long, Mr. Blackwood. The police sealed off the area last year. Biological contamination, or so they said." He paused, wiping his glasses. Though there were other rumors. I didn't ask what kind. I already knew. The Blackwood family had always attracted whispers, deals, disappearances, seances. My grandmother had been called many things: eccentric, spiritualist, witch. I used to think it was just the manor itself that made people uneasy. Blackwood Manor had stood on the edge of Lake Nocturne since the late 1700s. A labyrinth of Gothic stone and oak, half-eaten by ivy. Its reflection was said to shimmer differently in the water, as if the house that lived below the lake wasn't the same as the one above. I drove out that same evening. London's neon faded into mist as I left the motorway. The closer I came to Highgate Woods, the thicker the fog grew, a slow, silvery tide swallowing the trees, the road, even the sound of my own tires. By the time I reached the old iron gates, visibility was less than 5 feet. The padlock was gone, the chains rusted apart. I pushed them open, and they groaned like something waking up after a long sleep. The drive to the manor was longer than I remembered, the gravel path twisting through oak trees like black spines. The headlights caught faces in the fog, statues, angels half melted by moss. Every one of them seemed to watch the car crawl past. Then, there it was. Blackwood Manor. It loomed like a cathedral of rot. The windows were dark and empty, the roofline jagged against the fog. The lake behind it shimmered faintly, a black mirror reflecting nothing at all. Inside, the air was stale. The scent of mildew and wood polish clung to every wall. The electricity flickered weakly when I turned the generator on. A single bulb buzzed in the foyer, painting everything a sickly yellow. I passed portraits of my ancestors, stern, powdered faces with eyes too human. My grandmother's portrait hung at the top of the stairs, Eleanor Blackwood, in her 60s, back straight, gaze sharp as glass. Even through the dust, her eyes seemed alive. I poured myself a drink from the old study's decanter. The scotch was still there, half full, untouched for years. I told myself I'd only stay one night. Just enough to inventory the place, to convince myself it was still just wood and stone and memory. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks. Each one perfectly spaced, 6 seconds apart. At first, I thought it was the wind, or the wood expanding. But the sound came again. 3 more knocks. Steady. Deliberate. From the front door. I checked my watch. 3:03 a.m. The hall stretched ahead of me like a throat. I remember every creak of the floorboards, every heartbeat in my ears as I reached the door. I waited, half expecting another knock. Nothing. When I finally pulled it open, the fog rolled in like smoke. There was no one outside. Just the porch steps, slick with dew. Then I saw it. A mask lying on the stone, white porcelain, cracked down the center, one side smeared with dried blood. It was the kind of mask you'd see at a masquerade ball. Victorian, delicate. I picked it up, felt the chill of it through my glove. The inside was warm. Something about it was wrong. The crack along the cheek looked almost deliberate, like it had been split from the inside. I looked around, the fog had thickened into a wall. Beyond the porch, the trees were gone. Even the lake's reflection had disappeared. And then, faintly, I heard it. A whisper from somewhere within the fog, too soft to be words, yet familiar. My name. Ethan. I froze. The voice was unmistakable, my grandmother's. But it was thinner now, stretched, like it came through water. Come inside, darling. It's cold out here. The mask slipped from my hand and hit the step with a dull click. Back inside, the air seemed heavier. The lights dimmed, even though the generator still hummed below. The old grandfather clock, the one that hadn't worked in decades, began ticking again. I shut the door and bolted it. The sound stopped. I poured another drink and told myself it was exhaustion. But when I turned, there were wet footprints on the floorboards, small, bare feet, leading from the doorway toward the grand staircase. The prints ended at the first step. And there, hanging from the banister, was something new. A single rusted key, tied to a string of black ribbon. The tag attached was handwritten in my grandmother's script. For when the knocking stops. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I searched every room, half out of fear, half out of anger at my own fear. The manor was filled with relics from the 18th century, clocks, books, taxidermy under glass. But the deeper I went, the more it felt arranged, as if someone had been expecting me. In the drawing room, I found a table set for two. Silverware polished. A teacup steaming faintly. The scent of burnt sage hung in the air. Then I saw the writing on the mirror above the fireplace. Condensation had gathered there, spelling out 4 words as if drawn by a fingertip. Do not open the cellar. The message faded as I watched. At dawn, the fog outside hadn't lifted. The lake looked darker than before, oily, still. And from somewhere below the floorboards, faint and rhythmic, came a new sound. Tap. 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 Like knuckles on wood, echoing from beneath the house. I followed it down the hall to the door under the stairs, the entrance to the wine cellar. A heavy oak door, sealed with a chain and 12 iron nails. Each nail shaped like a crucifix. The rust on them wasn't ordinary. It shimmered red, like dried blood. The key in my pocket pulsed with warmth. I told myself I wouldn't touch it. Not yet. But as I turned away, the knocking came again, 3 times, 6 seconds apart, and from behind the door this time. And from somewhere inside the walls, my grandmother's voice whispered again. Ethan, let me in. Morning in Highgate came without light. The fog hadn't moved an inch. It pressed against the windows like a living thing, its grey body breathing slow, patient breaths. Somewhere outside, a crow screamed and went silent mid-cry, as if the air had swallowed the sound. I sat in the library, the mask and the key on the table before me. The porcelain face looked different by daylight, smaller, more fragile. I traced the crack with my fingertip and felt a faint pulse beneath the surface, like blood moving inside something that should have been dead. My phone had no signal. The landline hummed but never rang through. And when I checked my watch, it had stopped at 3:09 a.m., 6 minutes after the first knocking. I don't know what made me stand, or why I picked up the key. Perhaps it was the note, for when the knocking stops. Perhaps it was simple exhaustion, the kind that turns reason into a whisper. Either way, I found myself back at the cellar door. The 12 nails gleamed in the half-light, black iron shaped into tiny crucifixes. The chain was thicker than I remembered, links fused together by rust and something darker. When I pressed my ear against the wood, I heard faint movement beneath, not footsteps, but shifting, like someone dragging cloth across stone. I spoke softly, almost embarrassed by my own voice. Grandmother. Nothing. Then, a sigh. Long, deep, like air leaving a grave. Ethan, please. It's so dark. Every instinct screamed, leave it alone. But the words came out of me before I could stop them. I'm here. Just, tell me where you are. Below? Bring the light. The key in my hand burned hot. The first nail came out easily. The second resisted, groaning as if pulled from bone. By the seventh, the air smelled of iron and smoke. Each time a nail dropped, the house seemed to exhale, timbers creaking, walls tightening like lungs around me. When the final nail fell, the chain slithered loose and hit the floor with a sound too wet to be metal. The door opened inward. The smell hit first, damp stone, burnt incense, something sweet and rotting. My flashlight cut a narrow beam through the dark, illuminating a staircase spiraling downward into black. I hesitated on the threshold. The air that drifted up was warm. Come down, Ethan. I can't see you. Her voice again. Closer now. The steps were slick. Each one groaned under my weight. Halfway down, the walls began to breathe out tiny motes of dust that shimmered like sparks. I realized then that the cellar wasn't carved from stone, but from charred brick, its surface veined with old burn marks. At the bottom, the space opened into a chamber. The floor was covered in ash. And at the center, a wooden table, blackened, split down the middle, holding something wrapped in a sheet the color of candle wax. Above it, a chandelier hung crooked, its glass tiers filled with soot. Around the walls, 12 candles burned, their flames motionless, as if the air itself refused to move. I approached slowly. The shape on the table was small, delicate, like someone sleeping. When I pulled the sheet back, my heart stopped. It was her. Eleanor Blackwood. Perfectly preserved, eyes open, skin pale as salt. Her hands were folded over her chest, one clutching a bronze key engraved with a single word, broker. Her lips were parted, and from the corner of her mouth trailed a thin line of black soot. I whispered, Grandmother. Her eyes shifted. Only slightly, but enough. The pupils dilated, following me. I stumbled backward, catching myself on the table. The jolt sent something sliding onto the floor, a folded parchment, old and stiff. The edges were brown, and the surface felt wrong, like skin. Across it, written in ink the color of dried blood, were words in my grandmother's hand. The future of Eleanor Blackwood belongs to the Crimson Widow. In exchange, the manor, the lineage, 7 generations of fortune. Termination clause. The covenant shall be broken only when the rightful heir opens the tomb and looks upon the body of the matriarch. Signed, in witness, the broker. A drop of moisture landed on the page. For a moment I thought it was from the ceiling, until I realized it had come from my own hand, trembling above it. The sound came again, the tapping, faster now, echoing from every corner of the room. The candles flickered inward, their flames bending toward Eleanor's body. Her fingers twitched. The bronze key slipped from her grasp and hit the stone with a metallic cry. The moment it touched the ground, the air exploded in heat. Every candle burst upward, flames stretching into long, thin spines. The ash on the floor began to swirl, rising like smoke, forming symbols that crawled across the ceiling. I grabbed the key instinctively. A voice filled the chamber, not hers this time. Deeper. Male. Smooth as oil. Inheritance confirmed. I spun around. No one. Only shadows thickening near the far wall, where the bricks bulged outward like something beneath was pushing through. Ethan Blackwood, the voice purred. Executor of the covenant. Signer yet to sign. Who's there? I shouted. A laugh, soft, hollow, echoing against itself. We have met, though you do not remember. Your grandmother kept my name for the final hour. You may call me The broker. The walls quivered. A shape emerged from the brick, half-formed, faceless, wearing a judge's robe of smoke. Where its face should have been was a white mask, split down the center, identical to the one from the porch. It hovered a few feet above the ground, speaking without breath. She bargained well, Eleanor did. 7 lives for 7 generations. But every contract must close. Every debt must return. I held up the parchment. You made this with her. I witnessed it. I keep records. She wanted prosperity, power, longevity. You were the final clause. And now you have opened the seal. I took a step back, heart hammering. What happens now? The mask tilted slightly, as if smiling beneath the cracks. Now the next page begins. The figure dissolved into smoke, rushing toward me. The flames bent with it, sucked inward. The heat vanished, replaced by cold so deep my breath turned white. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was on the cellar floor. The candles had gone out. The table was empty. No body. No parchment. Only the bronze key, lying against my palm, pulsing faintly like a living thing. Above me, the ceiling dripped, black water that hissed when it hit the stone. It smelled like burned metal and perfume. I stumbled up the stairs, choking on the cold. The door slammed behind me before I could reach it. The chain wrapped itself around the handle, links tightening until they bit into the wood. From the other side came a sound that will never leave me. A woman's laughter, low and cracked, rising through smoke. Warmth is mercy, she whispered. Ash is memory. I ran to the study and collapsed by the fire, clutching the key until the edges cut into my hand. The clock on the mantel had started again, ticking in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, something moved, dragging, scraping, breathing. And faintly, through the walls, came the same 3 knocks. Knock. 6 seconds. Knock. 6 seconds. Knock. I looked at the key, gleaming bronze in the firelight, the word broker reflecting in my eyes. For the first time, I realized the truth. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a summons. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because the house wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, the fire in the study hissed louder, like it was breathing. The shadows from the window panes crawled across the walls, forming strange, serpentine shapes that slithered toward me before melting away. By dawn, I'd given up pretending. I left the fire to die and walked the hallways, the bronze key in my pocket burning against my thigh like a coal. The fog outside was still there, unchanged, pressed tight against the glass. No birds. No wind. No sound. Just that feeling, as if the air itself were holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next mistake. At 7, the knocking started again. 3 slow raps, 6 seconds apart. But this time, it didn't come from the front door. It came from below. I followed the sound through the hallway, past the portraits of the Blackwoods. As I passed Eleanor's portrait, something flickered. Her painted eyes seemed to shift, glancing toward the staircase that led to the east wing. I turned. The knocking grew louder. The floor vibrated faintly, a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat beneath the boards. The cellar door was still chained. The nails, 12 of them, gleamed black-red where the candlelight hit them. And then I saw it. A 13th nail, smaller, newer, driven directly through the center of the chain. Fresh rust ran down from its head like blood. I hadn't put it there. When I reached for it, the wood beneath my fingers was warm. Not from heat, from life. The house was breathing. I took a hammer from the study and pried the new nail loose. The sound it made, that sharp crack, echoed through the entire manor, like the place itself screamed. As the nail came free, the wind outside changed direction. The fog began to move. From the nearest window, I saw it shifting toward the lake, rolling in waves like something being drawn there. The trees bent with it, branches reaching downward as though bowing. I didn't remember deciding to go outside. I just knew I had to. The front doors opened without my touch. The air hit me like ice. Highgate Woods had vanished into a pale grey sea. Only the faint silhouette of Lake Nocturne shimmered ahead, a perfect black mirror, cutting through the fog like obsidian. The grass beneath my shoes was wet, though it hadn't rained. Each step left prints that filled instantly with a thin film of ash, not mud. When I reached the lake's edge, I saw something that stopped me cold. The reflection in the water didn't match the world above it. The real sky was a dull grey, but the reflection glowed orange, as if a great fire burned somewhere deep below the surface. And in that reflection, the manor stood whole and shining, its windows bright with candlelight. A chill ran through me. Because behind one of those reflected windows, I saw movement, the silhouette of a woman, pale hair flowing behind her, standing perfectly still. My grandmother. You shouldn't have come, her voice drifted across the lake. It wasn't from the reflection, it came from the fog itself, surrounding me. You broke the seal, Ethan. And now it's awake. I spun, but there was nothing there. Only the fog swirling tighter around the shore. What's awake? I shouted. The one who keeps the balance. The broker. Her tone changed, soft, mournful. I made a bargain to save you once. But every bargain needs a replacement. The fog thickened until I couldn't see the water at my feet. Then something tapped against my shoe. A small, rusted locket, slick with lake water. Inside was a photo of me as a boy, maybe 8 years old, smiling in front of this very lake. Across the photo, faint and red, a single line had been written. The heir must pay the interest. I backed away, but the earth gave beneath my feet. The mud split open, revealing the edge of a stone slab, carved with the same spiral sigil I'd seen in the cellar. Water trickled through the cracks, but it wasn't water, it was black, thick, metallic. Blood? The bronze key in my pocket pulsed. I pulled it out. It was glowing now, faintly at first, then brighter, until the word broker blazed white-hot. From beneath the slab, something answered. A low hum that built into a sound like a heartbeat. The water of Lake Nocturne began to ripple outward in perfect circles, though no wind touched it. And then, in the center of the lake, a shape rose. At first it looked like mist. Then like a tower. Then like a figure. A man in a judge's robe, head bowed, his porcelain mask cracked down the middle. The same one from the cellar, the same one from the porch. He stood on the lake's surface, as if the water had frozen beneath his feet. Ethan Blackwood, the voice carried across the fog, smooth and cold. Executor of a broken contract. The broker, I whispered. The figure lifted its head. Through the crack in the mask, I saw an eye, red and glowing, burning from within like coal. Your grandmother defaulted on her terms. Her soul was collateral. You have activated the clause. What clause? Inheritance of debt. The ground beneath me trembled. The fog rushed downward, spiraling into the lake until the water turned still again, and in that stillness, ice began to form. I stepped back as the frost crawled from the shoreline outward, freezing everything in its path. In seconds, the lake was a mirror of white-blue glass, smooth as bone. The temperature dropped violently. My breath became smoke. The trees crackled, their bark splitting under the sudden cold. And there, beneath the ice, I saw something move, shadows writhing like eels, human shapes pressing up from below the surface, mouths open in silent screams. Across the ice, words began to form in dark red, as if written in blood from beneath. 7 days. Choose your future. Or 7 lives. The broker's voice thundered. The covenant is resumed. Payment begins at midnight. 1 sol per night, until the debt is cleared. I staggered back, shaking my head. No. No, this isn't real. Reality, he said, is only a matter of signature. Then he raised his hand. The ice cracked in a circle around him, splitting like glass. Flames erupted beneath the water, roaring up through the fissures, fire and ice merging into impossible color. Through that infernal light, his voice softened to a whisper. Sleep now, Ethan. You'll need your strength. The next thing I remember was waking on the study floor. The clock read 11:59 p.m. The fog outside had turned white as bone. In my hand was the bronze key, cold again, no glow, no heat. On the desk beside me lay the mask from the porch. But now, a new crack had formed across the forehead, branching downward like a vein. And scrawled across the mirror above the fireplace, in frost, were the same words from the lake. 7 days. Outside, the first snow of summer began to fall, thin flakes that hissed when they touched the window. I watched one melt on the glass and realized it wasn't snow at all. It was ash. From somewhere in the walls, a voice whispered, soft and intimate. You shouldn't have opened the door, Ethan. I turned toward the sound. But there was only my reflection staring back at me in the glass, pale, shaking, eyes hollow. And behind that reflection, for the briefest heartbeat, stood another figure, identical to me, older, wearing a cracked porcelain mask. He smiled. Then he was gone. Part 2: The Cellar and the Covenant. Midnight came without sound. The clocks in Blackwood Manor stopped all at once, every gear frozen, every pendulum hanging still. Even the wind refused to move. The air itself seemed to wait for something to begin. I stood at the window, staring at the lake. It was no longer frozen, not entirely, faint cracks spread across its surface, pulsing with dull red light like veins beneath translucent skin. Each pulse came in rhythm with my heartbeat. And beneath that rhythm, faint but steady, came the echo of 3 knocks. Knock. 6 seconds. Knock. 6 seconds. Knock. I poured whiskey into a glass with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The bronze key sat on the table beside me, gleaming faintly in the candlelight. I should have thrown it into the fire. I almost did. But every time the flame touched its surface, the fire dimmed, as though the key drank the light. At 12:03 a.m., my phone buzzed for the first time since arriving. A single message appeared on the cracked screen. Unknown number, have you told them goodbye yet? I froze. The words pulsed once, then vanished. The screen went black. By morning, the fog had thickened again. The forest was gone, swallowed completely. Only the lake remained visible, a mirror of dull grey. I tried the car. The engine coughed, died, and refused to turn over. The road out was buried under branches that hadn't been there yesterday. The trees had bent inward, sealing the path like a gate. Trapped. Completely. Inside, the house smelled different, damp metal and burnt sugar. I followed the scent to the study. On the desk, where the mask had been, lay a new object. A ledger, bound in black leather, edges curled as if licked by fire. Its title was etched in faint silver letters, The Ledger of Souls. I opened it. The first page bore my grandmother's signature, dated 1843, written in elegant looping script. Below it were dozens of names, every generation of my family. Each name was followed by a date and a mark. Some had a cross. Others, a circle, drawn in what looked like dried blood. At the bottom of the final page was an empty line. A blank space, waiting. My name was written faintly above it, as though someone had started carving the letters into the paper from beneath. 1 per night, a voice said behind me. A soul for every promise broken. I spun. The study was empty. They will come for them, the voice continued, now from the fireplace, the mirror, the walls. Friends, lovers, blood of your blood. One for each night until you choose. I shouted, choose what? The answer came from the window, the glass frosting over, words carving themselves in the ice. Sign or suffer. That evening, I lit every candle in the manor and waited for nightfall. I told myself I would fight whatever came. That I would find a way to undo this. At 11:47 p.m., the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered. Ethan. The voice was nervous, tired, familiar. It was Marcus Hale, my oldest friend. We'd gone to university together. He was the only person who'd visited me during chemotherapy all those years ago. Christ, man, I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay? There's news on the estate. Police reports. Something about contamination. My mouth went dry. Marcus, listen to me. Whatever you hear, don't come here. Don't. A sharp crack interrupted him. Not from my line, from his. Marcus. There was breathing. Heavy. Strained. Where are you? I asked. Static answered, then a sound, metal scraping against metal. A faint elevator chime. Marcus, what the hell? Then came the scream. High, short, abruptly cut off by the sound of something slamming shut. The line went dead. I called back again and again. No answer. Finally, a message appeared, number unavailable. But as I lowered the phone, I realized something horrifying. The faint echo of that scream still lingered in the house, not from the phone, but from the walls themselves, as though the sound had been absorbed and was now replaying. I followed it through the hallway, into the drawing room. And there, upon the mirror above the mantel, a new reflection had appeared. It was Marcus. Trapped behind the glass, his eyes wide, mouth open in a silent plea. Around his throat, a coil of black smoke tightened, twisting until the image snapped and went dark. On the table beneath the mirror lay a serpent-shaped shadow, coiling lazily. When I moved the candle closer, it vanished. The first night had claimed him. I stayed awake until dawn, pacing, drinking, thinking of ways to break the curse. Logic became useless, every answer dissolved into superstition. When sunlight finally touched the windows, it was red. The fog outside had changed color, glowing faintly as if filled with blood. I found the bronze key on the floor again, though I was certain I had left it on the desk. It pulsed twice, warm, and the sound of a slow heartbeat echoed faintly from somewhere below. The cellar. Again. I tried to resist. I swore I wouldn't go down there again. But something in that rhythmic pulse, the beat of it, synced perfectly with my own heart. Every step I took toward the cellar door made the sound louder. By the time I reached it, the chain had loosened on its own. The 12 crucifix nails were gone. Only the 13th remained, gleaming silver where the others had rusted black. When I touched it, the air grew dense, as if every wall in the manor leaned inward, pressing against me. The whisper returned. Eleanor's voice. It has begun, Ethan. The ledger opens. 7 days for 7 lives. Her tone softened, almost loving. You can stop it, darling. You can save them. You only have to sign. The key grew hotter in my hand, branding my palm with the faint outline of a serpent coiled around an eye. Where are you? I whispered. Her reply came from beneath the floor. Below the lake. In the place where warmth remembers. I pressed my ear to the wood. For a moment, I heard it, faint singing, female voices, a chorus humming a melody that rose and fell like the tide. It wasn't music. It was breathing, synchronized, human, hundreds of lungs inhaling at once. I fled to the upper floor, looked toward the master bedroom, where Eleanor's portrait once hung. But the painting was gone. In its place hung a mirror. My reflection stared back, pale and sleepless. Then it smiled, though I hadn't. And behind me, reflected perfectly, stood the broker. The porcelain mask gleamed white in the candlelight, the crack across its face glowing faintly red. He rested one gloved hand on my shoulder in the reflection, though my flesh felt nothing. "You cannot escape equity, Mr. Blackwood," he said calmly. "Your grandmother understood the law. Everything must be balanced. A contract is merely another form of faith." "Why me?" I asked. "Why my bloodline?" "Because she chose to save you. She traded her soul for your breath. Each generation pays in kind. And now the account has come due." He turned his head slightly, the crack widening as if the mask were smiling. "You will meet me properly soon. But first, you must witness." The reflection behind me warped. The walls melted into darkness. And suddenly I was standing ankle-deep in water, the surface black as tar, the air filled with the sound of chains. In the distance, a faint light glowed, a courtroom of bone and fire rising from the lake's center. Its benches were carved from ribs, its columns from vertebrae. The judge's dais stood tall above them all, shaped from fused skulls. And upon that throne sat the broker, robed in crimson silk, gavel made of polished bone. He looked down at me and spoke. "The trial of Ethan Blackwood, executor, descendant, debtor." Around me, ghostly figures appeared, faces I recognized. My father. My mother. Marcus. Each one silent, eyes hollow, watching. "Do you plead ignorance of the covenant?" I tried to speak, but no sound came. "Then we shall proceed by evidence." He gestured toward the floor. From the water rose a television screen, old and flickering. On it played a grainy CCTV recording, me, 18 months ago, hammering nails into a cellar door. 12 nails. Then a 13th. My breath caught. It was me. "The record shows you sealed the matriarch in her tomb for 48 hours. You called it containment. I call it fulfillment." The broker raised his hand. "Your crime, Mr. Blackwood, was mercy denied." The gavel struck. The water around me ignited. When I woke, I was back in my bed, soaked in cold sweat. The window was open. Outside, the fog pulsed faintly red. The clock on the nightstand read 2:47 a.m. A whisper drifted through the room, a woman's voice, close to my ear. 6 nights remain. Morning came, though I never saw the sun. The fog outside had deepened into something else, not vapor, but texture, as if the air had turned into wet fabric. It clung to the windows, dimming the light until even the candles seemed afraid to burn. The house was colder. The fire refused to stay lit, each match died before touching the wick. My breath hung white in front of me. At first, I thought I was alone. Then the grandfather clock struck once. Only once, not the hour, just a single, deliberate chime. And in the silence that followed, the voice of my grandmother whispered from the walls. "You shouldn't have seen the trial, Ethan." I walked through the hallways until I found the study. The ledger of souls still sat open on the desk. Overnight, new ink had appeared upon its last page, 7 names written in delicate cursive. The first line had been crossed out. Marcus Hale. Below it, 6 blank spaces waited. And next to the empty lines, a note in the same crimson ink. Balance must be paid in blood and memory. The heir shall watch. I closed the book, but the letters burned behind my eyelids. The air trembled faintly, a pulse that came not from outside, but from beneath the floorboards, as though the heartbeat of the entire manor matched the rhythm of my own. By afternoon, I found Eleanor's old study on the east side of the manor. It was a museum of dust and silence. A single chair faced the window overlooking Lake Nocturne, which glowed faintly even through the fog. On her desk lay a journal, bound in red leather, and sealed with a clasp shaped like a serpent eating its tail. The keyhole matched the bronze key perfectly. The moment I turned it, the metal clicked with a sigh, almost human. The pages inside smelled of smoke and lavender. Her handwriting flowed in perfect loops, disciplined and sharp. August 4th. The broker has come again. He says the Crimson Widow grows restless beneath the ice. I hear her voice when I dream. She speaks in warmth, not words. She promises me Ethan's health. She promises light where there was rot. All she asks is a witness. Another entry, dated 6 months later. The 7th generation ends with me. The covenant will hold if I can find the 13th seal. The broker says he can buy me time. But time, like fire, always eats what it touches. I turned the final page. If you read this, Ethan, you have already undone everything. The Crimson Widow knows your name now. She will test your mercy before she takes your soul. A drop of water splashed onto the page. I looked up, but the ceiling was dry. The droplet had come from the window. Condensation. The fog outside had thickened to the point of dripping. I wiped the glass, but froze when I saw what lay beyond it. Lake Nocturne was frozen again. In the center of the ice stood a figure in white, small, motionless. I leaned closer. It was a woman, or the shape of one. Her hair hung in long strands, black against the pale surface. Something glinted beside her, a phone. I felt my pulse in my throat. I recognized that phone. Sophie Langford. My ex. My first love. The only person who had ever known what the Blackwood name really meant. I ran through the manor, out into the fog. The air was colder than before, sharp, metallic. The moment my boots hit the frozen earth, the sound echoed like glass shattering. When I reached the shore, I shouted her name. No answer. The figure didn't move. The ice beneath my feet groaned as I stepped onto it. Hairline cracks spread outward like veins, glowing faintly with red light from below. Sophie. My voice vanished into the fog. I took another step. And another. The figure finally turned. It wasn't her face. It was a mask. The same cracked porcelain I'd seen on the porch, now whole again, no blood, no fissures. Beneath it, the woman's skin gleamed like frost, veins black against white flesh. Her eyes glowed faintly red through the slits. When she spoke, it wasn't her voice. It was Eleanor's. She's watching, Ethan. Don't look away. The ice split beneath my feet. A dark shape swam below the surface, something enormous, serpentine, coiling beneath the glass. As it passed under me, I saw its eyes open, twin spheres of crimson light burning through the water. The voice of the broker rolled from every direction, echoing across the lake. Night 2. The witness has been chosen. The woman in white extended her hand toward me. Her fingers brushed my wrist, freezing skin to bone. Then, from beneath the ice, a clawed hand shot upward, gripping her ankle. The glass shattered. She was gone, dragged under in a whirl of black water. Her phone slid across the ice toward me, stopping at my feet. Its screen glowed, cracked but functional. A single message filled it. Sophie, she said your name before she drowned. The ice beneath me screamed. Cracks spiraled outward, chasing my footsteps as I ran for the shore. Every step sent shards flying, the lake roared beneath, alive and furious. I collapsed on the bank, lungs burning. When I looked back, the ice was still again, perfect, unbroken. No trace of her. Only a single mask floating on the surface. The wind carried a faint whisper through the fog. 2 down. 5 to go. I stumbled back to the manor before the frost reached my bones. My reflection in the windows followed me, lagging half a second behind, as if it moved on its own delay. Inside, the house felt heavier. The air crackled with static. On the main staircase, I saw that the portraits had changed. Each ancestor now had a faint red mark drawn across their throat, a painted wound that hadn't been there before. Eleanor's eyes, once grey-blue, now glowed faintly crimson. Back in the study, the ledger of souls had updated itself. A second name now crossed out in red. Sophie Langford. Below it, 5 spaces remained. And next to them, a single line of handwriting that hadn't been there before. The widow is hungry. I shut the book and threw it into the fire. The pages didn't burn. The flames turned blue and spat it back out. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the tear fall on the bronze key. It hissed, releasing a puff of smoke that smelled like salt and blood. That's when the voice returned, not Eleanor this time, not the broker, but something older. A woman's voice, smooth and cold as iron. Do you know why they called me widow? The sound came from behind me. I turned, nothing but the flicker of firelight on glass. My reflection stared back, eyes black, mouth moving without sound. The voice continued, close to my ear. Because I outlived every man who dared make a promise. Eleanor offered her life. You offer your guilt. 7 nights to prove which burns longer, blood or faith. The air shimmered. My breath turned white again. We'll speak soon, Ethan. When the lake turns red. When the voice faded, I realized I was no longer holding the key. It had vanished. In its place on the desk lay a single red petal, slick with frost, as if torn from a rose that had grown beneath the ice. I placed it on the ledger, though I knew I shouldn't. The candle beside it extinguished instantly. In the sudden dark, I heard the faintest laugh, a woman's, led over the sound of cracking ice. I went to the window once more. The lake glowed faintly under the fog, its surface trembling like glass about to break. And deep within that trembling reflection, I saw her, a silhouette with hair like smoke and eyes like dying stars. She stood beside the broker, whispering something into the hollow where his ear should be. He nodded once. And though the glass between us separated the worlds, I swear she looked at me. Tomorrow, she mouthed. We come for 3. I stopped counting the hours after the second night. Sleep had become a punishment. Every time I closed my eyes, the same dream replayed. A woman drowning beneath a sheet of ice, her eyes open, her mouth singing without air. And each time, when I woke, the sound followed me, faint and echoing, like a choir beneath the floorboards. The manor changed again on the 3rd day. The fog outside thinned slightly, but not to reveal light, it revealed movement. Shadows shifting within the trees. At first, I thought they were animals. Then one of them turned its head. They had faces. Dozens of them, pale, half-formed, mouths sewn shut with threads of red light. Their bodies melted into the mist as they moved, each one carrying something that glimmered. Masks. Porcelain masks, dangling from their fingers like ornaments. I stayed away from the windows after that. By noon, I found another message scratched into the frost of the dining room mirror. Day 3, reflection becomes witness. The letters melted seconds after I read them. I wandered through the east corridor, where Eleanor's old artifacts gathered dust, mirrors, silver trays, broken lenses, anything that could hold a reflection. Each surface trembled faintly, distorting my image like heat rising from asphalt. At the end of the corridor stood a tall, cracked mirror framed in iron ivy. I'd seen it before, in family portraits, behind my grandmother during one of her infamous seances. Something about it had always unsettled me. The glass seemed to breathe, to pulse faintly, as if there were another world pressing against its surface. That afternoon, the glass was warm. When I leaned closer, my reflection blinked a fraction too late. I stepped back. The reflection smiled, I didn't. Its lips moved soundlessly. Then, faintly, I heard my own voice echoing from behind the mirror. You buried her alive. My stomach turned. What did you say? You sealed her in the cellar, Ethan. 48 hours. You thought she was gone. You thought she was mad. No, I shook my head. I tried to save her. She wouldn't leave. She begged, the voice interrupted. You hammered the 13th nail yourself. The reflection leaned forward. Its eyes were darker than mine, deeper, like wells filled with smoke. You made me. I am what's left of you when truth burns away. The glass cracked down the center. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The sound echoed through the hall, followed by something else, the faint click of a heel on stone. A woman's figure appeared at the far end of the corridor. Her dress was black, soaked at the hem, dripping onto the floor. Her face was hidden behind a lace veil, but her outline glowed faintly red. She moved slowly, each step leaving a small, burning footprint. I whispered, Grandmother. The figure tilted her head, and when she spoke, it was not Eleanor's voice. She wore my name to hide her guilt. The lace fluttered, a breath beneath it. But I am older than blood. Her hands reached out from beneath the veil, fingers long and thin, skin the color of ash. Beneath each fingernail pulsed a faint red light, as if her veins carried molten glass. They called me the widow, she whispered. When men still made gods from fire. I couldn't move. Her presence filled the hall, pressing down like heat before lightning. Do you know what your grandmother asked for, Ethan? She begged for your life. She traded her flesh for your cure. But every promise births another hunger. The veil lifted. Her face was not a face at all, it was smoke-shaped like one, shifting endlessly. Only her eyes were real, red, glimmering like coals. Now her debt is your inheritance. The floor shuddered. The air turned molten. Every mirror in the corridor began to tremble, glass fracturing, silver peeling away. In each reflection, I saw her multiplied, hundreds of widows, whispering the same phrase in unison. Warmth is mercy. Ash is memory. The light in the hall died. When it returned, she was gone. But the words remained, burned into the walls in faint, glowing script. I spent the next hours tearing through Eleanor's library, desperate for anything that could explain what the Crimson Widow truly was. Old family journals. Church records. Occult texts bound in cracked leather. Finally, I found it, a yellowed folio labeled The Blackwood Covenant, 1742. The document was in Latin and French, but some lines were clear enough to translate. The spirit of the hollow flame, once worshipped by the first settlers of Highgate. She is called widow because she devours her mate to bear light anew. The bloodline that feeds her shall be granted health, wealth, and sevenfold favor. When the final heir is born, the covenant renews by witness, or by sacrifice. The last page bore a single symbol, a serpent swallowing its tail, and within the circle, a single word written in English. Broker. The sound came again, faint at first, then louder. Tap. 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 Not from the cellar this time, but from behind me. The mirror I had shattered was whole again. My reflection stood within it, smiling faintly, holding the bronze key. Behind it, through the distorted glass, I could see something moving, shapes like dancers swirling in slow motion, their faces covered by porcelain masks. It's time, Ethan, the reflection said softly. The third must die. I shook my head. No. No one else. No more. The contract doesn't stop for grief. It only pauses for payment. The phone on the desk began to ring. I didn't want to answer it, but the sound grew sharper, drilling into the air. The screen flickered, unknown caller. Don't, the reflection whispered. I picked up anyway. Ethan, a voice gasped, breathless, panicked. Rebecca, my associate from the firm. I've been trying to reach you. There's something wrong with your case files, your grandmother's death certificate, it's... Static cut her off. Then a faint splash echoed through the line. Rebecca? The static deepened into a low hum, rhythmic and wet. Then, faintly, her voice returned, soft, strained. I can see her, Ethan. She's beneath the ice. The connection ended. The mirror behind me turned red. Through the glass, I saw Rebecca, standing waist-deep in Lake Nocturne, eyes open, whispering as black water filled her mouth. The reflection smiled. 3. The phone exploded in sparks. The power died. Outside, thunder rolled across the fog, though no lightning followed. The ground shook with each pulse, and from somewhere distant came the sound of cracking ice. I ran to the window. The lake was glowing now, deep crimson, as if lit from below by molten fire. The fog above it churned like boiling smoke. And at its center stood the broker, half submerged, the water reaching his waist. He held a parchment in one hand and the bronze key in the other. Day 3, his voice echoed, vast and layered. The balance tips. I screamed through the glass, stop it. Take me instead. The mask turned toward me, the red light within its crack pulsing like a heartbeat. You already did. The reflection in the window shifted, the broker's body twisted into mine. The same suit. The same face. Only the eyes different, hollow, burning with crimson light. The voice softened. This is how it begins. The heir becomes the collector. The debtor becomes the judge. The crimson glow faded from the lake, leaving only darkness. When I turned from the window, every mirror in the room had filled with red light. Inside each one, my reflection whispered in unison. 4 nights remain. That night, I didn't light the candles. I sat in the dark, the bronze key cold in my palm, staring at the empty fireplace where Eleanor once prayed. And for the first time, I realized the truth. The broker wasn't separate from the family. He was the family, its shadow, its legacy. A curse given shape. And if I didn't find a way to end it before the 7th night, I wouldn't just join the Blackwood line of ghosts. I'd become the next broker. Part 3, The Frozen Lake and the Judgment. The 4th night began before sunset. I knew at the moment the house went silent again, the kind of silence that doesn't simply swallow sound, but memory. The clock stopped, the candles stuttered and died. Every breath of air in Blackwood Manor grew heavy, as though the walls were full of ash instead of plaster. Outside, the fog had turned red at its core. It pulsed faintly, like blood seen through skin. I hadn't slept since Rebecca drowned. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the lake freezing over her open mouth. I still heard the faint crack of the ice closing above her. But tonight, something new waited. The house itself wanted me awake. I found the ledger of souls lying open on the floor of the study, pages fluttering without wind. 3 names now crossed out: Marcus Hale, Sophie Langford, Rebecca Ward. Beneath them, 4 empty lines glowed faintly red, the ink moving like veins. And across the bottom margin, a new line had appeared in handwriting I didn't recognize. 4th night, the heir must witness judgment. The bronze key rested beside the book, slick with condensation. I touched it, and a pulse ran through the floorboards, deep, deliberate, like a heartbeat rising from beneath the earth. Somewhere below, chains rattled. The cellar again. I told myself not to go. Then the whisper came. Ethan, bring the light. It was Eleanor's voice, but thinner now, worn down, as though scraped against stone. I took the lantern from the hall and descended the stairs. The cellar door was open. The air that rose from below was no longer warm. It was cold enough to sting my eyes. Each breath left frost in the dark. Halfway down, I saw water seeping through the cracks between the bricks, black, glistening, and faintly luminous. It pulsed in time with that same subterranean heartbeat. At the bottom step, the world changed. The floor had vanished. In its place stretched a mirror of ice, flawless and black, reflecting the lantern's glow 1,000 times over. I could see myself standing upon it, and behind my reflection, the outline of another man. He stood several feet away, his back turned, dressed in a long black coat. The porcelain mask hung from one hand, swinging gently. "You came," he said. His voice was mine. Older. Deeper. "You've been waiting," I answered. He turned slowly. The mask caught the light, and for a moment, I saw both of our faces layered together, same eyes, same jaw, separated only by time. "The trial resumes," he said. "Your defense is incomplete." The air around us rippled. The cellar dissolved into darkness and bone. Once again I stood within that impossible courtroom, ribs for arches, vertebrae for columns, fire burning beneath glass floors. Above, where a ceiling should have been, the frozen lake shimmered, a window of ice showing the red moon beyond. The broker, my older self, ascended the dais. His gavel was gone. In its place, he held Eleanor's heart, encased in ice. "The matriarch stands accused," he intoned. "Her covenant broken, her soul in arrears." Across the courtroom, a figure appeared in chains, Eleanor Blackwood, eyes sunken, skin like parchment. She wore the same gown she had died in, the neckline burned and blackened. "Ethan," she whispered, "don't watch." I took a step forward, but the floor cracked underfoot, revealing red fire below. "State your plea," the broker demanded. Eleanor lifted her chin. "I plead for him." "Denied," the broker replied. "You pledged your flesh. You sealed the hound. You hid the 13th nail beneath his bed." He raised the frozen heart above his head. The ice cracked, blood swirling inside it like smoke trapped in glass. "Payment must continue." I shouted, "Stop. She did it for me. If there's debt, I'll." "You already are," he said. The walls groaned. The chained bones above shifted, lowering closer. From the ceiling of ice above, something vast moved, a shadow crawling beneath the frozen surface. Two enormous eyes opened, glowing crimson. The Crimson Widow watched. She pressed a hand, or something like a hand, against the ice. The skin was translucent, veins glowing with molten light. As she moved, cracks spiderwebbed outward, and red water began to drip through the ceiling, steaming where it fell. "Judge quickly," she whispered, her voice filling every corner of the court. "I hunger." The broker nodded once. "Then witness." The frozen heart in his hand burst. Flames erupted around Eleanor's feet. She didn't scream. She only looked at me, eyes calm. "Forgive yourself," she said. Her body crumbled into ash. The ash rose upward, merging with the widow's reflection above, feeding her, piece by piece, until the shape within the ice solidified into a woman's form, black hair flowing like smoke, mouth red as an open wound. The broker turned to me. "The judgment is not of her, but of you." He gestured toward the burning floor. From the flames rose 7 pillars, each bearing a mask. Each night claims a face. Each face a memory. When the 7th falls, you will remember everything. He extended the bronze key. "Your signature is overdue." I stared at the key, at the firelight trembling along its surface. "What happens if I refuse?" "Then the covenant reverts. The widow takes the bloodline, every drop." He stepped closer. I could smell ash and metal. But sign, and you replace me. The chain continues. The world remains balanced. And you disappear. I am already gone. I am what you will be. The air behind him shimmered. I saw flashes, fragments of the past, Eleanor hammering nails into a cellar door, me, younger, coughing blood, her whispering prayers over the flames. She saved you, he said. But every cure has its cost. He placed the key in my hand. Decide before dawn. The courtroom dissolved. I fell backward through darkness, through water, through fire, until I landed hard on the cellar floor. The lantern lay shattered beside me. The bronze key was still in my hand. And before me stood the mirror of ice, now cracked, a faint red glow leaking from the fissures. Inside that glow, a shadow moved, a woman's silhouette with eyes like dying stars. We are almost home, the widow whispered. 3 remain. The reflection touched the glass from the inside. The surface rippled like water, and for an instant I saw beyond, a vision of Lake Nocturne from above. The ice there was bleeding, spreading rivers of red through the forest. The fog rose higher, carrying embers instead of mist. Then it vanished. I stumbled up the stairs, every step echoing like metal on stone. The house was alive now, whispering through the pipes, sighing through the walls. When I reached the study, the clock struck 1. The Ledger of Souls had closed itself. On the cover, a single red handprint had appeared. Beneath it lay a note, freshly written in a hand that wasn't mine. Tomorrow, the living will answer the dead. Prepare the gun. I looked toward the cabinet. My grandfather's revolver rested there, the same one engraved with a cross on its silver bullet. I loaded it without thinking. Outside, the fog began to shift again, folding back toward the lake like a tide withdrawing before a storm. And for the first time, the manor whispered my full name, every wall speaking in one cold voice. Ethan Blackwood, broker in waiting. I sat by the dying fire until dawn, staring at the key. Each time I blinked, I saw the reflection of my older face within the flames, the mask half cracked, the eyes hollow, the mouth whispering one word. Soon. The 4th night ended with no sleep, no mercy, and a single truth burning in my mind. The Crimson Widow didn't just feed on blood. She fed on choice. And I had only 3 nights left to make mine. Dawn never arrived. Instead, a dim red shimmer lingered where sunrise should have been, bleeding through the fog like diluted wine. The manor shivered beneath it, every window pane humming with a low, dissonant note. I had slept no more than minutes, dreams too shallow to hide in. The revolver lay across my knees, heavy and cold. The single silver bullet gleamed with the engraved cross, its edges catching the dying firelight. The key pulsed faintly beside it, keeping time with the distant beat under the floor. 3 nights left. By noon, the air had begun to taste of iron. The fireplaces bled soot instead of smoke. The scent of lavender, Eleanor's favorite, drifted faintly through the halls, though every vase of dried flowers had long since rotted away. That's when I found the new door. It hadn't existed the day before, a narrow, black panel at the far end of the west corridor. The wood was warm, almost soft, and a sigil had been carved into its center, a serpent devouring its tail. The bronze key fit perfectly. When I turned it, the corridor folded inward, light bending like water. The world beyond smelled of ash and wet stone. A spiral stair descended into firelight. I followed it down until I stood within another version of the courtroom, smaller, intimate, almost domestic. The benches were occupied by shadows, silhouettes of people I'd known, Marcus, Sophie, Rebecca, all staring straight ahead, motionless. At the center stood a desk fashioned from bone and glass. Upon it lay Eleanor's journal, open to a page written in hurried ink. If the heir must stand before the widow, he must carry the flame of refusal. Gun of the patriarch. Bullet of mercy. Aim for the mask, not the man. For only the mask remembers. I touched the page, the ink was still wet. You're late, said a voice behind me. The broker emerged from the dark. His mask was cracked wider now, revealing half of my own face beneath, aged, ashen, streaked with black veins. Night 5, he said. The Ashen Trial. He snapped his fingers. The shadowed audience stood. Their masks turned toward me in unison, white porcelain faces split with red fractures. Each one lifted an arm, pointing at me. The air must account for the deaths, the broker intoned. 3 souls claimed, 4 to come. Do you deny your role? I raised the gun. I didn't kill them. You opened the door. You spoke the name. You looked upon the body. The courtroom trembled, ash fell like snow. The broker's tone softened. You cannot fight inheritance. You can only manage it. He gestured toward the gallery. Show him. The shadows stepped forward, transforming as they moved. Marcus's corpse, throat crushed by the serpent of smoke, Sophie, dripping lake water, Rebecca, eyes frozen open. They circled me slowly, their movements synchronized like a ritual dance. Each one whispered the same words, laid atop one another. Warmth is mercy. Ash is memory. The broker leaned close. Sign, and they rest. Refuse, and they repeat forever. My finger tightened on the trigger. I won't sign, I said. Then you'll burn with them. He thrust his hand toward me. Black fire burst from the floor, curling up around my legs. The gun flew from my grasp, landing across the room. The shadows lunged. Their hands were cold and slick, pulling, clawing, whispering my name. I reached for the revolver, but the fire thickened, heavy as tar. The journal on the desk ignited, pages turning to white flame. Ethan, Eleanor's voice whispered from the blaze, the 13th nail. I understood. I aimed the gun at the mask, not at the man. The silver bullet glowed red in the chamber. The broker tilted his head, almost amused. Mercy, then. Let's see what form it takes. I fired. The sound cracked through the chamber like lightning. The bullet struck the mask's fracture, splitting it clean in two. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the mask screamed. A rush of light erupted from the wound, a torrent of memories spilling into the air, Eleanor's laughter, the scent of autumn leaves, the first time I saw Lake Nocturne freeze as a child. All of it poured out of him, flooding the room in blinding white. The broker staggered backward, clutching his face. Beneath the breaking porcelain, I saw what hid there, not another man, but the reflection of the widow herself, coiled and waiting. Her voice bled through his. He breaks the chain, foolish child. The courtroom cracked apart. The shadows disintegrated, collapsing into ash that spiraled upward into the ice ceiling. Through the cracks above, I glimpsed the real world, the manor trembling, windows bursting outward, the lake outside turning crimson. The widow's hand reached through the air toward me. You freed his body, she hissed, but not his role. I fell backward into the ash. When the light faded, I lay once again in the study. The gun was beside me, smoking. The bullet hole in the floor glowed faintly, forming a new sigil, a broken mask surrounded by a ring of serpents. The ledger of souls opened itself with a sharp crack. The 4th name had appeared, written in silver instead of red. Eleanor Blackwood, released. But beneath it, a new inscription began to burn through the page, etched by invisible fire. Broker displaced. Successor pending. The bronze key, resting on the desk, vibrated once, then split in two. I staggered to the window. Lake Nocturne was no longer frozen, it boiled, thick red mist rising from its surface. At its center, the widow's silhouette writhed, her body half smoke, half flame. She looked upward, directly at me. He is gone, she said, her voice echoing through the glass, but the seat remains. The reflection of the window shifted. In its surface I saw myself sitting upon the broker's throne, the cracked mask resting against my lap. 3 nights, she whispered. 3 witnesses. Then you are mine. The glass shattered outward. I awoke on the floor hours later, the fire long dead. The revolver was empty, the bullet casing gleamed beside me. My reflection in the broken glass no longer matched my movements, it blinked slower, smiled when I didn't. Somewhere in the house, the grandfather clock resumed ticking, counting down. The ledger turned another page on its own. The final section was blank except for one line. Night 6, the widow walks. I gathered the shattered halves of the bronze key, pressing them into my palm until they drew blood. The metal drank it eagerly, fusing together again, now darker, not bronze but black. When I closed my hand around it, I heard Eleanor's voice once more, faint and far away. You have one chance left, Ethan. Don't let her wear your face. Outside, the red fog began to climb the hill toward the manor. Each tree it touched turned to cinder. The water of Lake Nocturne hissed and froze again, this time from the inside out, sealing the widow beneath a sheet of blood-stained ice. As I watched, 7 cracks formed across its surface, the shape of a serpent devouring itself. 1 crack for each night. 2 remained unbroken. And deep beneath the ice, something opened its eyes. The storm began without thunder. Only the wind changed, slowly, purposefully, until it sounded less like air, and more like a woman breathing outside the walls. Every window in the manor fogged at once, sealing me inside. The fire refused to burn. The clocks bled time instead of keeping it. Thin trickles of water slid from the faces of the dials, falling like tears. Night 6. The widow's night. I barricaded the study doors, though I knew would meant nothing to her. The revolver sat beside the blackened key, reforged in my blood. Every heartbeat in the house echoed through it, a pulse that wasn't entirely mine. When I opened the ledger of souls, I found 2 names left untouched. No ink. Just space, waiting. Outside, the red fog had reached the threshold of the manor. I could see it pressing against the glass like liquid flame. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Bare feet on marble. Slow. Wet. She entered without opening the door. The air folded inward, and the widow stepped through the seam of the world as easily as light through water. Her dress of black smoke trailed behind her, every movement left frost blooming across the floor. Her face was clearer now, beautiful, terrible, endlessly shifting. When she smiled, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The chain weakens, she said. You've broken the mask, freed the matriarch. The broker is gone. And yet the covenant still breathes. Tell me, Ethan, will you feed it, or finish it? I raised the gun. I'll end it. She tilted her head, amused. Endings are just beginnings that remember their first scream. She stepped closer, and for the first time I saw what moved within her eyes, faces. Hundreds of them, swirling like trapped fireflies, each whispering prayers in tongues older than language. Every victim. Every heir. They thought I was born of evil, she murmured. But I was only the echo of mercy unanswered. Her hand brushed the wallpaper withered to dust. Your grandmother promised me 7 generations. I gave her 7 miracles. I gave you breath when death was certain. Now you give me passage. She extended her palm. The black key floated between us, hovering, trembling. Unlock the final gate, Ethan. Become what you've already begun to be. I felt the pulse in the key sync with my own. My vision blurred. The walls melted into shadow. For an instant, I stood outside my body, watching myself lift the key toward the door that led to the cellar. Then Eleanor's voice thundered through the house. Don't. The flames in the hearth reignited, blue and furious. Eleanor's spirit formed within them, her outline fragile but bright. She cannot take what remembers its sin. Ethan, burn the name. I stared at the ledger. The blank lines shimmered. The widow hissed. Disobedience will only delay your suffering. Maybe, I said, but I'll make sure it ends with me. I tore the final page from the ledger, threw it into the fire, and shouted the word that had cursed us for centuries. Broker. The house convulsed. The windows shattered inward. Fog burst into the room like blood from a wound. The widow screamed, not in rage, but in hunger. The black key split again, releasing a wave of heat that blew out every candle. I fired the revolver into the heart of the flames. The silver bullet hit the burning ledger. The explosion wasn't sound, it was memory. Every wall of Blackwood Manor split apart. The portraits bled. The ceiling opened to the sky. Through the rupture I saw Lake Nocturne, frozen and on fire at the same time. The ice fractured into 7 petals of crimson light, and beneath them the widow's true form writhed, vast, serpentine, crowned in black fire. Her scream shook the trees for miles. You think sacrifice ends the covenant? Foolish blood. It only transfers. The floor collapsed beneath me. I fell through darkness, through ice, through centuries. When I landed, I stood once more before the lake, but it was no longer Highgate. It was a mirror suspended in the void, reflecting endless copies of me. Each version older, crueler, more distant. From the nearest reflection stepped the broker, mask reformed, face whole again. You've done what every heir does, he said gently. You've mistaken resistance for choice. You burned the record, but you wrote it in fire. You killed the keeper, but kept the key. He opened his hand. The mask materialized within it, white porcelain, newly cracked. Someone must keep the balance. Someone always will. I dropped to my knees. Then let it be me. End it with me. He smiled. It already is. He placed the mask on my face. The world went silent. Cold seeped into my bones. My heartbeat slowed until it matched the rhythm of the lake beneath me. The crimson light dimmed to embers. In the reflection, my eyes glowed faintly red. The broker vanished. Only I remained. When I opened my eyes again, I stood in a different house. Smaller. Newer. A Georgian townhouse in Edinburgh, its windows glowing with morning light. Outside, children laughed somewhere down the street. The air smelled of rain, not ash. I looked down. My hands were clean. My suit was new. Only the mask remained, tucked beneath my arm, cracked but intact. A knock came at the door. 3 times. Each 6 seconds apart. I opened it. A young man stood there, briefcase in hand, confusion in his eyes. Mr. Blackwood, he asked. They said you're the executor for the estate in Highgate, some inheritance matter. I smiled. The voice that came out wasn't mine anymore, calm, distant, hollow. Yes. I'm the heir and the witness. Behind me, in the mirror of the hallway, the lake shimmered faintly. Its surface began to freeze. Epilogue: The covenant renewed. They say Lake Nocturne never thaws now. That sometimes, when the fog drifts low over Edinburgh, you can hear 3 slow knocks echo from beneath the ice. And if you follow them, if you answer the door, a man in a black coat will be waiting, mask in hand, his voice smooth as glass. You have 7 days, he'll say. Choose wisely. Then the fog will close again. And another name will vanish from the world.